Well, at this moment, I want to welcome everyone who's watching online and everyone in person in one of our 4 campuses. We have campuses in Dallas, West Fort Worth, Keller, and North Richland Hills. And at the Hills, we are in a season of harvest. Jesus used that word. He said the harvest is ripe. He didn't pray that there'd be a better harvest. He'd pray there'd be more people to go into it. That's what Harvest Weekend is all about. I want to thank you for joining me in that prayer. We started a 16-day prayer guide last Sunday. It's on that QR code. If you weren't here, it's on our daily app at on our phones, on our websites. Go to that journal and pray with us. Today we're praying for the Spirit to be poured out in a mighty way on our harvest. So join us in that, and it's going to culminate in a big prayer moment this Saturday. We're going to have activities from 3 to 5 about representing our nations. And then from 5 to 7, we're calling everyone for a night of prayer and worship. Luke Lefevre is going to be with us. We're asking people from all 4 campuses to come in person to the North Richland Hills campus. From east of Rockwall to west of Weatherford, we're asking people to make the drive and fill this house and ask the Lord for nations and generations. Please be a part of that. Bring your kids and let them see what asking for a harvest looks like. And one of the things that we're doing is we're showing God we mean it when we pray, because we're backing it up with our wallets. So today we're trying to raise over $3.3 million. And I know some of you have already written your checks. So do me a favor, get those checks out and tear them up. Because after you hear the sermon you're about to hear, you're going to want to give more money. Because you're going to hear a lesson today from one of our church planters. This fund is going for 27 missionary families, for 5 Bible translation works, and for 20 church planters we're actively supporting right now. And one of them is Kyle Costello. Would you come join me, brother? Kyle, his wife Joy, and their 2 boys planted a church in Ojai, California. You'll hear more about that place in just a moment. They've already seen about 50 people surrender to Christ and be baptized. It's an amazing story and an amazing man, and he is going to bless us today and remind us why what we're doing right now matters so much. So would you give a Hills welcome to Kyle Costello?
Well, for me, it is so good to be here, like just from my heart. I started kind of getting into the church plant world in 2008 or so, and a few years after that, I started to hear the name of this church over and then over and then over, and it's just grown over the years. Like I have friends, for me, God just wired me to be a church planter and be connected to church plants. And so I have my friends in church planting, and I'd ask, who's supporting you? Who's praying for you? Who's resourcing you? And it would be the Hills, the Hills, the Hills. And so I thought today, before I jumped in, of the book of Romans. In the book of Romans, Paul writes to the church in Rome, and he says, your faith is actually being made known throughout the world. And I just want you to know that. Like, we know that church isn't a spectator sport. You just don't come here to check a box. Like, we come here and we gather and then we go. And your faith is going. It's going beyond Texas. It's going out there, folks. And it is blessing so many. It was 3 years ago. My wife and I got to come be here and share with your leaders, like the heart, the kind of the call that God had put on our hearts to plant a church in Ojai. And man, it's been a gift to me and my family that you guys have supported us. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. I just love the way you are living out the story of Jesus. Well, before I jump in today, I got to tell you about my crew, because when God called me to Ojai, he also called these 3 other people, and they can't be here today, but I want to tell you a little bit about who they are. The guy up there in the shortest guy with the tie, his name is Malachi. And Malachi is the guy that makes us all smile in our family. He loves every sport. Whatever sport's on TV at that moment is his favorite sport, okay? And he is 8 years old, but when he knew I was going to be telling you guys about him a little bit, and he was like, hey, Dad, just make sure they know I'll be 9 in a couple weeks, okay? Like, I feel like I'm 9. He's like, I feel like I'm 9. Maybe you could even just say I'm 9 or just tell him in a couple weeks. I was like, dude, so if he asks, right, just make sure that you tell him, hey, he told us you were going to be 9. But my oldest boy, Isaiah, he is, he's got a mind on him, and he's got a focus that man, I wish I had even today. He right now is so focused on golf. And that's what he does, and that's what he thinks about, that's what he reads about, studies about. And so he will get up, he'll set his alarm for 5 a.m. And I'll be waking up, and I'll hear this noise in the backyard, this thwack, thwack. And he's out there just working on his swing. I don't know if Rick's been secretly sending him, stuff, but like he's ready to go. And then Joy is like the energy. She's the engine. She's the light, the love of our family. She is awesome. And I know she has loved you all because of the way you have blessed us. You send her cards and letters, and that might seem small. It's really big deal. When you're up there and you just got your head down and you're grinding, and then you get a card in the mail and someone's praying for you and telling you they love you. It's just really cool. And I know if she was here, she would just want to say, thank you. And I know a lot of guys say this. They'll say like, hey, I married up. But for me, I absolutely leveled up in this family, okay? Like Malachi, his name means messenger of the Lord, okay? Isaiah, it means my salvation is God. God is my salvation. Joy is it's joy, like the joy of the Lord. And Kyle means lives by a creek. Exactly, right? Exactly. So I promise you I leveled up. I'm so thankful for our partnership with our family and what's happening. I'm going to tell you about that today. Because today for me, like when I see the kids bring up their offering, when I hear the invitation that is coming from folks up here and from the conversations you all are having, like it is super personal. Like it's super personal, not only because of what I do now, and we'll get there, but how God has blessed me in my life. Because you all are taking his story, are taking his word, you're taking it to places that it doesn't exist. And I don't know if I can tell you that enough. Like, there are places in our country, there are places in this world where you can't just hear the gospel, where it's not just readily available. I grew up in one. I lived in Utah. I grew up in a time where, man, you did not hear there ever the message of Christianity. I grew up as a 6th-generation Mormon. My family came to faith in Mormonism in the 1850s. They lived in Europe at the time. They took a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. They landed in New Orleans, and then they pushed a handcart from New Orleans to Salt Lake City. It was like a heritage and a legacy growing up that my family was like proud of. I was the oldest of 7, and all I ever wanted to do was to make my family proud. I didn't have any designs on leaving the Mormon faith. I would have thought you were insane if you would have ever said I would be a Christian pastor. In the 80s and 90s, there's no smartphone, there's no social networking, right? I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was like we were awesome as Mormons in Utah, and that's all I ever thought about. And this message today and what you all are doing is personal because someone in my life was willing to take the story of Jesus and share it with me. See, as we look at the Bible, Jesus gives a sermon. He gives a sermon, and in that sermon, guys, he looks at the people who are following him, at the people who said yes to him, and he starts to tell them who they are. And he says this, he says, you are the light of the world. And as much as he preached this 2,000 years ago, I want you to hear this today. Whether this is your first time here, whether you've been coming forever, whether you sit in the front row or the back row, whether you know tons of people or whether you don't know anyone, he says, you are the light of the world. When you follow him, that's you. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. What I want you to know, before we take another step, is when Jesus says, you are the light of the world, you actually means you. I don't know if you know the purpose God has for you, the plans he has for you. And I'm not saying this as some inspirational message, something just to make you feel good. No, Jesus looks at his followers, and it's kind of the scandal of the gospel. It's because we know deep down, like, really, if it's left up to me, I can't change the world. But he's saying, no, when you give it all to me, you can absolutely change the world. And so for me, I grew up in Utah. And then I graduated high school at 17. So that meant in Mormon land, like you can't go on your mission, your Mormon mission, until you're 18. So I had to go to college for a year. And I got a scholarship to go to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the UNLV, right? So I'm in Mormon, Utah, and I go to UNLV in Las Vegas. I don't know if you know this, but neither of those places are considered the hotbed of evangelical Christianity, okay? So I didn't know any Christians, like at all. And I go, and it's in the first year I meet my dorm mate, and he's not a Christian, but I tell him I'm a Mormon, and next year I'm going on a mission, and my whole goal will be to convert people to Mormonism. And so this year, I'm going to do my studies, but I'm going to be getting prepared. And he goes, hey, I'm not a person of faith, but what I'll do is I'm going to help you. I said, how are you going to do that? He goes, well, I'm a theater major, and I need practice too. He goes, why don't you try to convert me, and then I'll play different characters. Like I'll be the East Coast liberal, I'll be the Southern evangelical. And so what's weird about this, guys, is that God uses it. He uses it to get me to start asking questions about Mormonism that I would have never asked before. Like this guy wasn't a Christian, but he was a smart dude, and he would ask me questions and challenge me in my faith and ask me to defend myself in my faith, so much so that by the end of the first semester, I went home and I had several meetings with my dad and my grandpa, who was the bishop. And by Christmas break, I was like, I can see the contradictions. I can see the falseness. And I left the faith. Now, I would love to say that the next day I found a Christian church and went to that Christian church and gave my life to Jesus. I didn't. I just went back to school, and I was trying to figure out how to deal with like the first 18 years of my life. Like I just went down the road and going, okay, I don't know what's next. I don't know who God is. And then 2 years later, God brings a girl into my life. Because as most guys know, it always starts with a girl, okay? And I meet this girl, and she is smart, and she is beautiful, and like she's like everything I could have ever wanted. There was like one problem with her, and that was that she wouldn't pay attention to me. And it didn't make any sense, guys. This is the late 90s. I had an amazing head of hair. Like I had, blonde, like highlights even, But she wouldn't give me a look. My guy friends were friends with her group of girlfriends, and one night we were out, and we were getting dinner or something, and she says, I got to go home early. I got to get up early. I got to go home right now. I got to get up early and work in the morning. And I just wanted to have more conversations with her, and so I lied, and I said, so do I. Could you give me a ride, right? Real honest of me. Anyway, we're walking towards her car. Come on, guys, don't act like you've never done, All my guys in the room left me on that. Anyway, we're walking towards her car, and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna get like 10 minutes of conversation. And we get up towards the car where I see is hers, and I see on the back of the car a Jesus fish. And I'm like, oh man. I didn't know Christianity, but what I did know is I didn't want to deal with religion anymore. Like I was working through the wounds of Mormonism, and I just kind of lumped them all in one thing. But what you have to understand is when you have like a church planner's mindset, Like you always have to be able to deal with obstacles and quickly see how maybe it could be positive. And so as much as I was like, oh man, almost immediately, I'm like, wait. Maybe it's a used car, okay? So we sit down in the car. I said, hey, what is that fish on the back? She goes, I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm like, well, what does that mean? For the first time in my life, I meet a Christian who shares their faith with me. And I remember listening and hearing it, and I would love to say again that I just said yes in that moment, but I was just like, I've never heard this before. I don't know what to do with it. But what she realized in that moment is that God had placed her in that space to be a light. God had placed her in that space to be a messenger of his story and of his goodness. And she didn't care who was sitting there. She didn't care what the circumstances were. And she shared her faith with me. And she invited me to her church. And I hadn't been to a church in 2 years. And all I'd ever been to growing up were Mormon churches. And so I said, okay, I'll go. And I want you to know, I didn't say that because I wanted to go to church. I said that because she was hot, okay? So if you said that today because the person invited you is attractive, that's okay. God can work with that, all right? Sometimes people will say, first time I came, somebody just promised me lunch. I'm like, that's fine too. God will begin working. So she invites me to church, and I'm like, hey, what's it like? Because Mormonism, like, when you went, you suited up, full suit, tie, everything, right? And what you would know in the Mormon church is you knew the people who were outsiders because they would roll in like khakis and a golf shirt, and you were like, they're not very holy, right? And then if they came in jeans, it was like, they're definitely going to hell. Like, they're not. So she's like, oh, it's fine. It's super casual. Just wear what you want. And I was like, I'm not looking like the idiot. So I suited up. And I looked like the idiot, right? So I go with her, and about the third time I'm there, I hear someone share the message of Jesus in contrast with themselves. Like, this is a preacher who my whole life I was taught to put faith in men. I was taught to put faith in leaders, and they were where you found, like, in a way, your salvation. And he's up there, and he's going through all these negative traits, and then he ultimately says, he goes, this is me when I don't submit to Jesus. He goes, and I have no hope if I don't give it all to him. And that messed with my head. I had never heard that before. He said, if you're here because you just love my preaching and you think I'm great, he's like, I'm glad you like my preaching. But if that doesn't translate to you trusting in Jesus and putting your hope in him, he's like, I'm going to let you down. He goes, it is not about men. It is not about women. It is about the living God. And man, that messed with my head. So I started going to classes. I started trying to figure out what it looked like to take this Christianity seriously, but at the same time I was dealing with my past. But after 3 years, I finally gave my life to him. But folks, yeah, thanks. And this is because someone was willing to say what Jesus said is true, that we are the light. And see, you guys are stepping into this story and you're saying, yes, we're going to take what he says is true, and we're going to be people who say it is all about him, and let's let him be the light. Let's let him come alive in us and be the light to this world. Listen again to what it says. It says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but it's on a stand, and it gives light to all the house. Do you see how it just anywhere there's darkness, it gets rid of it. Anywhere there's darkness, it exposes it. It says, in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. See, what people will start doing is they'll start watching us. They'll start seeing us. And they'll see what comes from our hands and what comes from our intentions and what comes from our work. And it'll be so good and grand that they'll go, man, I knew Kyle. He couldn't do something great like that. How did he do it? Well, because God is alive and with us. Like, this is how he works. This is how he makes kind of unbelievable stories happen. For me, I said after 3 years of going to church, I gave my life to Jesus. About a year after that, Joy and I got married. Things were going well. And we joined a small group, and I had this amazing kind of mentor and friend who was helping me along with Joy just figure out Christianity, kind of disentangle it from my past. And then one day, my small group leader says to me, hey, you've never talked about being baptized. Have you been baptized before? And I said, I don't need to be baptized. In the Mormon church, you get baptized for dead people. I said, I've been baptized over 300 times. I'm like the Michael Jordan of baptism. I can like baptize myself, okay? Baptism's not for me. And he has a moment there, right? He can say like, dude, this guy's nuts. I'm just gonna like let him go. But he didn't. He opened the Bible and he said, hey, maybe let's rethink this. Maybe we should talk about what it looks like to respond to a God who calls us all to go into those waters. Maybe we should talk about this. And he took time. And his good works became a light in my life. His good works showed me what it meant to be obedient, so then I could be obedient. He, along with Joy, man, they were just both these forces in my life where I would see them submit to God and good and beautiful things would come from them. At the same time, I had started working for Ford Motor Company and things were going well. I was getting promoted and making more money than I really had thought like I could at that age. And it was blessing our new marriage. And we were able to buy like a home that we thought was amazing. And then one night I'm in my office and I'm typing. And my fingers just type in the name of my mentor, my small group leader, his Bible college that he went to. And I know there's different backgrounds in here, and so if this makes you feel uncomfortable, and I'm gonna say in a minute, you can just be like, oh, that guy, he's just from California. But I feel like as I'm looking at the website of the Bible college, God says to me, you need to go to seminary. You need to quit your job and go to seminary. And back then, there was no online degree, so you would have to quit to go. And I'm like, there's a couple problems with that, God. Like, one, we need money to live. Number two, when I tell Joy, I don't think that's gonna go well, and I'm kind of afraid of her, you know? And he's like, no, like, are you gonna listen to me? Like, you've let these other people be light, now are you gonna let yourself start living that way? So I drive home, and we're sitting around the island of our kitchen, and I say to Joy, I think God's telling me to quit my job and go to seminary. And I'm just like, I can't imagine what she's gonna say, you know? She says, yeah, he told me the same thing 6 months ago. I'm like, thanks, right? Yeah, that's awesome. He said not to tell you because you wouldn't listen. But what happens is that people's good, when they receive that they are the light of the world and it changes others, then they can step into it. And it's this story of perpetuating the story of Jesus that's happened since day one when he called the first 12 to follow him, right? And this is what we're talking about today. Because when we do good things in the name of the Lord, the smallest or the grandest, it means they are good. No hype needed. Like no hype. Like we live in a world of hype. Like everything has to be new. Everything has to be amazing. Everything has to be fantastic. And we use exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. We use emojis all the time. Think about it. Every time they come out with a new phone, they're like, you gotta get the new phone. And you're like, why? My current phone talks, texts, takes pictures. No, you gotta see the screen on this phone. You're like, really? And it starts making you think, yeah, I guess my screen is just, I guess it's not that good. You should see the pictures this new phone takes. I always am like, I don't look at the pictures I take with this phone. But God, he is not insecure. And in the book of Genesis, when he creates the world with oceans and the Grand Canyon and Yosemite, right? He doesn't use emojis. He just goes, it's good. And then what he says, you're going to do good things too. And so what happens is we get into this and it starts to change everything. Like our world doesn't have compartments for it because it's God birthed and God breathed. And so that moment when I left that job and when I went to seminary sent us on a path that would eventually turn us into people who just loved church planting. And if you fast forward several years, we had planted a church in Salt Lake City, Utah. I went back to kind of my homeland, started a church in the downtown area of Salt Lake. And man, God he just blessed us. He allowed that church to grow. He let us buy property like less than a mile away from the downtown temple and tabernacle of Mormonism. He allowed us to have a second location and grow our people in baptisms and allow us to plant churches. And I just thought that was where I was going to be my whole life. But one thing I've learned, and one thing I've tried to practice, is that I never try to tell God what my story is. So I want to come to him with open hands and I want to say, God, what do you want to do with me? How do you want to shine your light through me? And so about 9 years in, almost 10 at the church, I'm out praying. We're at a men's retreat. And I'm walking by myself and I'm praying, God, what does it look like for me to follow you? What does it look like for me to take the next step? And I heads down and I'm looking where there was a fire, like a forest fire, like probably a couple years before that. And so I'm not looking up and I'm praying, God, what does it look like for me to follow you? What does it look like for me to take the next step? And I look up and 30 feet in front of me is a sign staring me right in the face. And all the sign says is California. That's the picture that you're seeing right now that I just pulled out my phone and took it. It was an old phone, so the camera's just not that good. But I see California. And I'm like, what does this mean? Because if you don't have to be a geography buff to know Utah doesn't touch California. Like there's no reason for this sign to be out in the middle of nowhere. So we go home and my wife and I start praying and the ball just starts rolling for us to leave. Like a place I never thought we would leave. And leads us to California, which eventually leads us to plant a church in Ojai. And when you hear Ojai, I'm sure most of you thought like, oh, what? Oh, where? Right? But it is this place that is phenomenally beautiful. I mean, if you there, like people get really frustrated when the temperatures rise like above 80. They're like, it's so hot. And then it goes below like 66 and they're like, it's freezing. You know, a friend always says, man, if you can deal with the weather, it's a good place to live. And it's in this beautiful valley. But man, for hundreds of years, it has been a place where people have come to worship all kinds of false gods. It's been a place where Jesus has never been like exalted or famous. And it's been a place where God called us explicitly to go and to be the light. Yeah. And you all, yeah, thanks. And you all have allowed that to happen. His sermon says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. I've had to hold tight to this message, hold tight to this passage, because there is darkness in the place where we live. Like it's easier to get a palm reading or a tarot card reading than it is to get a cup of coffee. We have the largest occult library in the nation there. People coming from all over to, they say, recharge their crystals or seek their own kind of spiritual awakening. And what I've had to do is go, God, you brought us here to be a city on a hill that shines. And so have your way with us. And guys, I can't tell you how encouraging it has been to have you all as our partners and our family there. Because what I've come to see is that as the light shines there, as you step up and you are the light here and it reflectively shines there, like it means victory, not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but forever. Like it changes people's lives forever. Like today might be the harvest offering, but this will literally sow seeds that will not stop producing fruit until Christ comes. Think about that for a minute. Like so last month I watched on Netflix the documentary they have on the Cowboys dynasty of the 90s, And that was like my time. That was when I was in high school. I was like very acquainted with those teams, most specifically because I was a 49ers fan, okay? And yeah, you can boo the pastor, it's fine. And when you grow up in a Mormon home, Steve Young is like, right? And if you don't like Steve Young and you're a Mormon, like they just kick you out of the house. You got to leave. And so, man, I love Steve. I loved those games that used to happen, and you guys would always win, except in '94. But sorry, not trying to needle a little bit, but it was so fun watching the documentary and remembering like how good y'all were, because it was a sight. But you guys know, and I'm not trying to be, hurt you, but the dynasty ended. But you know that this will never end. Do you know that what you participate in today, tomorrow, it's not going to stop? You guys that saw your kids put the money, you can tell them like there is a long game here. That they're going to have somebody from Refuge Church, Ojai, California, after Christ has come, we're celebrating in heaven, tap them on the shoulder and go, you changed my life. Think about that. I think about a man named Rick. He's in his 70s. He goes to my church. He started coming. He said, Kyle, I was an atheist my whole life. I was an engineer. That's all I thought about was my work. I didn't have any thought for God. He goes, and then you guys started and I came. He can't even give me a reason particularly why he came. He goes, and then he asked me, can you teach me how to pray? I said, sure. He said, hey, can we read the Bible, or can you tell me what Bible translation you get? Yes. He started to join some of our classes, and then he came and said, this is very engineer. I think in about 4 to 6 months, I'll be ready to be baptized. And in a very engineer way, he did. You get tapped on the shoulder by a woman named Felicia. Felicia grew up in the Ojai Valley, and man, from just a broken home, like hurting story, right? And then she tried every kind of Ojai faith you can imagine. And when we opened, she sent me a message before I ever met her. She sent me a message through Facebook, and she said, hey, I'm going to this church right now, and she gave me the link. She's like, I think I want to try yours out. I want to talk to you guys. I know you haven't launched yet, but will you talk to me about it? And I looked at the website, and I looked at these messages, and I was like, hey, I know they call themselves a church, but that doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. And she goes, I know, that's why I need to leave. And now she has been baptized. She is serving and leading in beautiful ways. Guys, this game is the long game, and it's not going to end. All we're going to do in our story is Jesus is going to keep stacking up more and more and more stories of people who, because we heard his message and lived into the light, changed everything. So today, how I want to close is first just say, I love you. First, I want to say thank you, and then I want to bless you. I want to bless you and close in prayer. And so what I ask as I bless you is that you would just extend your arms and receive this blessing. And I'm just going to pray this passage over us. Because I want you to leave here today, no matter what you think about yourself, I first want you to know that when you follow Jesus, when you get everything to him, Hills Church, you are the light of the world. A city on a hill, it cannot be hidden. And folks, you are shining. Keep on shining. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give the glory to your Father in heaven. Amen? Hey, let's pray. God, you are good. Thank you that you take a boy from Utah and connect him to a church in Texas, and we get to see you work wonderfully. God, show us what it looks like to just keep trusting you. Every time, God, we have a moment, every time we have an opportunity to just lay it all before you, would we listen? Would we do it? Would we follow, God? And would you tell the greatest story with our lives? And God, would you get all the glory? We praise you and thank you for your son, Jesus. We say this now and we pray this now in his name. And everybody said, amen.